Good afternoon, folks. Thank you for joining. There's been a lot of activity during this council session, so I thought I'd take a moment and sort of provide the United States views on it. I wanted to mention some of the important developments and also some of the continuing challenges of the council. So I have a short statement and then we'll take some questions. As you saw today and yesterday, the council showed that when the international community is united, we can deliver forceful messages about the importance of promoting and protecting human rights. When the Council speaks with a unified voice, when it speaks by consensus, it always speaks more powerfully. From North Korea to South Sudan, the Council did indeed speak by consensus. The Council made clear that it is unacceptable for gross human rights violations to continue. It is the job of the Council to shine the brightest possible spotlight in the world's most egregious abuses, on the world's most egregious abuses. The United States was pleased to co-sponsor the resolution on human rights in DPRK led by Japan and the European Union. That established a panel of experts to explore appropriate approaches for accountability. The resolution should be a clear signal to leaders who rule with impunity that they will ultimately be held to account for systematic violations of human rights, such as mass labor camps, extrajudicial killings, and the other horrors that were well documented by the Council's Special Rapporteur and Commission of Inquiry. On South Sudan, we created a new type of special procedure mechanism, a three-expert commission to monitor the absolutely deplorable human rights situation in South Sudan. This mechanism also holds out the possibility that if a transitional government of national unity in South Sudan is formed, as the United States hopes one will be, and meets certain benchmarks, the Commission can offer guidance to South Sudan about how to overcome the history of violence and begin a pathway towards healing and transitional justice. We want to thank our partners in the core group, Albania, Paraguay, and the United Kingdom. We also want to thank the leadership of the African Union and the vast majority of states in the African group, especially the leadership of South Africa. We were proud to have been a member of the core group that renewed the Commission of Inquiry in Syria and the Special Rapporteur on the human rights situation in Iran. These special procedures have proven absolutely critical in documenting human rights violations and abuses in those countries and establishing a basis for ultimate accountability. With respect to Iran, we have said repeatedly that the fact that there is an agreement on the nuclear issues should in no way distract from the continuing human rights violations in Iran. Indeed, now is the time to re-emphasize the need for Iran to take affirmative and significant steps to address the many human rights problems, including ensuring fundamental freedoms of expression, association, assembly, religion, and belief are adhered to. This Council has passed important resolutions on Guinea, Mali, Haiti, and Libya that aim to help provide important technical assistance. Along with Myanmar, for which the Council has renewed a special rapporteur, we salute these states for their cooperative approach they have been taking with the Human Rights Council. Where states are cooperating with mechanisms and show political will to address human rights challenges they face, Council action should be shaped accordingly. We hope each of these states maintains the political will that is essential to address effectively past and present human rights challenges and move towards a brighter future for their people. If those states show such political will, the United States and the Council remain steady partners to help support their path to safer, more secure, and more prosperous future based on the rule of law. The United States stands firmly with human rights defenders and will continue to defend the rights of individuals to protest peacefully. We were pleased to see these resolutions pass the Council, but we remain deeply concerned about the tremendous number of hostile amendments filed against these texts. Why did states, including Russia, file more than 30 amendments to those texts to eliminate words like human rights defenders or women human rights defenders when they have joined consensus on these resolutions about these exact topics in the past? We are disappointed to see the return of another discredited procedural tactic, the no-action motion, used on the Iran resolution. Fortunately, the Council spoke by an overwhelming majority of states from all regions of the globe, voting down this ploy to avoid scrutiny, and ultimately voted to renew Iran's special rapporteur. Council members are elected in the Council to vote, not hide. The states who voted for the no-action motion failed at living up to this basic duty of membership. The Council will need to keep working to fix the systematic weaknesses, and the Council is made weaker by the presence of major human rights violators among the Council's 47 members, states that use their membership to resist scrutiny of the human rights records of themselves and their friends. In this regard, we were perplexed that Russia continues to politicize key issues such as the independence of the judiciary in a resolution on the integrity of the judicial system. The international community may view the resolution as ironic, particularly given the sponsorship by Russia, which just orchestrated a deeply flawed show trial and conviction of Ukrainian pilot and Rada member Nadia Savchenko. The United States was pleased to read at this session a joint statement expressing concern about the deteriorating human rights trend in China. We hope Chinese authorities will reinforce respect for international human rights obligations and the rule of law in the wake of incidences such as the crackdown against rights lawyers and civil society and the abduction of Hong Kong booksellers forcibly returned to the mainland to stand public show trials. The United States remains deeply troubled with the Council's standalone agenda item directed at Israel and the slate of one-sided resolution. At this moment, we don't know the fate of all those resolutions, but one is especially disturbing. Today's resolution calling on the Office of the High Commissioner to implement a database on businesses operating in settlements. This is an unprecedented step taken by the Council, one not applied to businesses operated in the DPRK, Eritrea, or any other state. This only serves to reinforce the one-sided nature of the Council's actions against Israel and its biased Agenda Item 7 directed exclusively at Israel. We also remain deeply concerned by the call for such databases because it is far outside the Council's scope of authority and because of the enormous waste of resources that it will involve. But we hope that the Council's systemic flaws do not outshine the positive work that was accomplished in the past month. From Burma to South Sudan to the DPRK, the Council spoke forcefully to the importance of improving human rights even in the most challenging environments. And on thematic members from the right of people with disabilities to the importance of freedom of religion and belief, the Council made clear that there is much more work ahead. Thank you, and I'd be prepared to take some questions.
Question about South Sudan. Quite interested that this oral amendment suddenly went through last night, and you got a commission, I'm not sure if it's of inquiry, but it's commission into human rights anyway. And South Sudan cooperated with this, and I wonder if you think that in terms of ultimate accountability, as you put it, that means that the president thinks he's going to get away with, what his forces have been committing in terms of a massive, astonishing wave of rapes and killing and such like. It seems incredible. I mean, are you confident that the people who are responsible for this are going to see justice? Thanks.
Well, I'm not going to prejudge the findings of the commission on specific individuals, but what I will say is that what is at the council's the council's tools include special rapporteurs and commissions of inquiry, or in this case, commissions on human rights, and these bodies are intended to go and find the facts and determine, in appropriate cases, who should be held accountable. And we think that whether it's in Syria with the Commission of Inquiry or Iran, all these places, we think a key aspect to ultimate reconciliation is accountability. And the fact that we've had a system of impunity for far too long in South Sudan has led to the grave and systematic violations of human rights that you've identified. We are astonished as anyone, and frankly, you cannot read the report of the High Commissioner and walk away not just feeling incredibly sad because of what these victims are going through. And so the United States position is that we had to take forceful action. The Council had to take forceful action, and we were able here to get a consensus resolution that created a commission that will investigate and determine the facts on the ground so that we can find a way to ultimate accountability that will lay the foundation for reconciliation.
Just to follow up, though, I mean, on the question of the South Sudanese government cooperating with this, I mean, do you really think they're? I don't really know why they decided to cooperate, but normally when we have these commissions, the governments say they won't cooperate and they do all they can to resist, which may or may not be an effective strategy. But just what do you read into their cooperation? Is it overconfidence?
Well, what we have said to every country that has a resolution in which there is a special procedure, that you should cooperate, that you have the ability then to state the facts as you know them and make your case. And that's always better than being resistant to these mandate holders and just having them hear the facts from others. North Korea decided not to take that approach. Iran has decided not to take that approach. Eritrea has decided not to take that approach. Myanmar has, in recent years, taken the approach of being more open to the special procedures there. And South Sudan has decided to take that road, at least by word, and we'll see if by deed. And we think that these commissions can do a far better job in actually finding the facts on the ground if they are provided access to the country. So we think that this is a search for truth. We think that this is about putting a spotlight on a situation so we understand the facts in a far better way. And if South Sudan has information that has opposition forces that have committed certain abuses, then we want to learn. We want the Commission to identify those as well. We think that in South Sudan, in particular, we have seen grave and systematic violations and abuses on both sides. And so we don't think it's one side or the other, but we think that if the spotlight is shown, it's far more likely that we will have a cessation of these sometime in the future. And that's our hope.
How concerned are you about North Korea in terms of there's a resolution that's passed, but obviously the country itself has balked considerably on any cooperation at all with the resolutions and various other measures from the Human Rights Council?
Well, on this specific question, North Korea has been rather schizophrenic. They started off with a completely non-cooperative approach. And then after the Commission of Inquiry report was issued a couple of years ago, they started lobbying all governments all over the world so that it wouldn't go to the GA and it wouldn't go to the Security Council. It has now been raised in the Security Council twice. So it's our view that the more we push on this issue of accountability, particularly among its senior leadership, then we think that this is a tool for pushing North Korea to actually come to the table and start recognizing that the international community will not accept and will not tolerate their utter failure to continue what the Commission of Inquiry has said could be crimes against humanity. And so, again, as with South Sudan, we think that the better approach for the country concerned is to cooperate. Some countries don't always do that. North Korea is one example. The obligation of the Council is to use the tools available to promote and protect human rights. Sometimes those tools are effective in the near term, and sometimes they take a longer. We still should utilize those tools for that purpose. And sometimes they have to be done in conjunction with a series of other tools, whether those be actions in New York at the General Assembly, actions at the Security Council, or through bilateral pressure from certain countries. We also would be remiss if we didn't say that China has a particularly important role in this matter. China has too often defended North Korea, and we think that they've taken some important steps in recent times to not defend certain actions of North Korea, but we think it would be appropriate if China would take additional steps regarding North Korea's human rights record as well.
aside from the human rights concerns, and of course that is paramount in your mind, but in terms of politically speaking, and when you're more or less berating China for its own human rights record, how much do you think politically you're going to be able to leverage China to support you on issues like North Korea when at the same time you're also criticizing China for its own record?
Well, we think that we're going to call balls and strikes. We're going to call them as we see them. And when China is abusing human rights, we're going to call China out on abusing human rights. And we are very happy to have a total of 12 countries with us on a joint statement on China. The first time, I should note, that joint action was taken at the Human Rights Council since its formation a decade ago. And we think this is the appropriate time to do so in light of China's complete and utter failure to live by certain rules of the international community. You cannot go to other places and kidnap human rights defenders. You simply can't do that, and we're certainly not going to let you do that and not call you out on it. So look, China can take the approach that it wants to somehow not deal with North Korea simply because we've criticized them as well. But I actually don't think that is the sound approach, because what they will be doing is ignoring the facts, not our facts, but the facts as found by the Commission of Inquiry, the facts as found by the Special Rapporteur. Importantly, a panel of experts was just created in order to identify ways to bring North Korean officials, hold them accountable. And that went by consensus. So China may have felt that they didn't particularly like that, but they did not call for a vote and vote against their resolution, because even China understands that the North Korean human rights situation is among the world's worst situations. And we all lose out, and the human rights system loses out if we don't hold North Korea to account.